What started as routine late-night banter exploded into television chaos when Woody Harrelson confronted Stephen Colbert about his show's pharmaceutical sponsorships, leading to an unprecedented on-air meltdown that has the industry reeling. The Late Show's studio atmosphere felt different from the moment Woody Harrelson walked onto the set. While the audience applauded enthusiastically, those watching closely could sense an unusual tension radiating from the veteran actor. Colbert, flashing his trademark grin, seemed oblivious to what was brewing beneath the surface as he launched into his standard opening pleasantries. "Woody, always great to have you here," Colbert began, settling into his chair with practiced ease. "You're here to talk about your new film, but I have to ask about your recent comments regarding health and wellness. You've been pretty vocal about natural remedies lately." Harrelson's expression shifted almost imperceptibly. "Yeah, well, when you've lived as long as I have and seen what I've seen, you start questioning the narrative we're fed about what's good for us." The comment hung in the air for a moment before Colbert, perhaps sensing an opportunity for comedic relief, decided to poke the bear. "Oh, here we go. Are we about to get into some conspiracy theories? Should I be worried about chemtrails next?" The audience chuckled, but Harrelson didn't join in. Instead, he leaned forward slightly, his voice taking on a more serious tone. "You know, Stephen, it's interesting that you'd mock alternative health approaches on a show that's literally sponsored by pharmaceutical companies." The laughter died. Abruptly, Colbert's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before he attempted to regain control. "Well, I mean, we have a lot of sponsors, Woody. That's how television works." "Right. But don't you think there's something inherently problematic about making jokes at the expense of natural health advocates while taking money from Big Pharma?" Harrelson's voice remained calm, but there was steel beneath it. "I mean, during the commercial breaks, you're literally selling products that suppress symptoms instead of addressing root causes." The studio fell silent except for the hum of cameras and equipment. Colbert shifted uncomfortably, his usual quick wit seeming to abandon him momentarily. The production team behind the cameras could be seen exchanging worried glances. "Woody, I think you're reading too much into this," Colbert finally responded, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. "We entertain people. We don't claim to be medical experts." "But you influence people," Harrelson pressed on, his passion beginning to show. "Millions of viewers watch this show every night. When you mock natural health solutions and then immediately cut to ads for prescription medications, what message do you think that sends?" The tension in the room was palpable now. Audience members sat frozen, unsure whether to laugh or remain silent. Colbert's producers were frantically signaling from the wings, but the host seemed caught between wanting to end this line of conversation and not wanting to appear like he was backing down from a guest. "Look, Woody, I respect your right to have opinions about health and wellness," Colbert said, attempting to sound reasonable while clearly struggling to maintain composure. "But let's not turn this into some grand conspiracy about television advertising." Harrelson's eyes flashed. "Conspiracy? Stephen, it's not a conspiracy when it's happening right out in the open. Your show takes millions from pharmaceutical companies, and in return, you create a culture where questioning their products makes someone a conspiracy theorist. That's not hidden. That's just good business, right?" The actor's voice carried across the studio with unexpected force. "But what about the people who can't afford those medications? What about the communities that have been devastated by opioid addiction, thanks to these same companies you're so happy to take checks from?" Colbert's face flushed red. The careful balance he usually maintained between entertainer and political commentator was crumbling in real time. "That's completely unfair, Woody. You're making connections that don't exist." "Am I?" Harrelson shot back. "Because I've done my research. I know exactly how much your network makes from pharmaceutical advertising. I know about the editorial meetings where topics get killed because they might upset sponsors. This isn't some theory. This is documented fact. The audience was now completely silent, witnessing something they'd never seen before on late night television. Colbert looked toward his producers desperately, but the cameras kept rolling. The confrontation had moved far beyond the realm of typical celebrity interview banter into something much more serious and uncomfortable. "You're way out of line here," Colbert said, his voice rising slightly. "We're trying to do a show here, not conduct some kind of exposé." "Exactly my point," Harrelson replied, leaning back in his chair with grim satisfaction. "You don't want to expose anything that might threaten your revenue stream." The words hit Colbert like a physical blow. His jaw clenched visibly as he struggled to maintain his composure, but the mask of professionalism was slipping fast. "You know what, Woody? That's enough. You come on my show and attack my integrity?" "I'm not attacking anything that isn't already compromised," Harrelson fired back without missing a beat. "I'm just saying what everyone in this industry knows but is too scared to admit. You've become a mouthpiece for corporate interests, and you hide behind comedy to avoid accountability." The studio audience was now completely captivated by the unfolding drama, their heads turning back and forth like spectators at a tennis match. Some pulled out their phones, sensing they were witnessing television history in the making. Colbert's voice grew sharper, more defensive. "I've spent my entire career holding powerful people accountable. I've taken on politicians, corporations, and anyone else who deserves scrutiny." "Have you, though?" Harrelson interrupted, his voice cutting through Colbert's protest. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've become exactly what you used to criticize. You punch down at people who question the system while taking money from that same system." The host's hands were visibly shaking now. Whether from anger or adrenaline, it was impossible to tell. "This is absolutely ridiculous. We're talking about television advertising, not some massive cover-up. Are we, though?" Harrelson's voice remained unnervingly calm. "Because I remember when you used to be fearless. I remember when you would have been the first person to question why major networks won't air stories about pharmaceutical side effects or alternative treatments that actually work." The production crew behind the cameras looked increasingly uncomfortable. Several producers were frantically making phone calls, presumably to network executives who were watching this disaster unfold in real time. "You don't know what you're talking about," Colbert snapped, but his usual quick wit seemed to have abandoned him entirely. "We cover important stories all the time. Do you cover the stories about how many people die from properly prescribed medications every year?" Harrelson asked pointedly. "Do you cover the revolving door between pharmaceutical executives and government regulators? Do you talk about how medical schools are funded by the same companies that profit from keeping people sick?" Each question landed like a hammer blow. Colbert's face grew redder with each accusation, and he seemed to be struggling to find solid ground to stand on. "This is completely inappropriate," Colbert finally managed, his voice now noticeably strained. "You're turning my show into some kind of anti-pharmaceutical rant." "I'm not anti-pharmaceutical," Harrelson clarified, his tone becoming more intense. "I'm anti-corruption. I'm against the systematic suppression of information that could help people make informed decisions about their health. And I'm definitely against comedians who sell out their principles for advertising dollars." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Colbert stood up abruptly from his chair, his professional demeanor completely shattered. "That's it. I'm not going to sit here and let you attack everything I've built." "Everything you've built on a foundation of corporate money," Harrelson shot back, remaining seated but leaning forward aggressively. "Tell me, Stephen, when was the last time you did a segment critical of any pharmaceutical company that advertises on your network?" The question struck home. Colbert's mouth opened and closed wordlessly for a moment before he found his voice again. We cover what's newsworthy." "What's newsworthy according to whom?" Harrelson pressed relentlessly. "Your producers? Your network executives? Or the pharmaceutical companies that pay millions to keep their products in front of your audience?" The studio audience was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Many were recording on their phones, already anticipating how this would explode across social media within hours. Colbert took a step closer to Harrelson's chair, his voice dropping to an angry whisper that the microphone still picked up clearly. "You have no idea what you're talking about, and you're embarrassing yourself." "The only thing embarrassing here is watching someone I used to respect defend the indefensible," Harrelson replied, finally standing up to meet Colbert's aggressive posture. "You've become everything you used to mock." The two men stood face to face, the tension so thick it seemed to fill every corner of the studio. Colbert's breathing was visibly labored, his face flushed with a mixture of rage and humiliation. "Get out," he said quietly, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "What?" Harrelson asked, though he'd clearly heard. "I said get out!" Colbert shouted, his voice cracking as it echoed through the stunned studio. "Security! Get him out of here!" The audience gasped collectively. In decades of late-night television, nothing like this had ever happened. Phones were raised throughout the studio as people frantically tried to capture every second of the meltdown. Harrelson shook his head slowly, a look of genuine sadness crossing his face. "This is exactly what I'm talking about, Stephen. The moment someone challenges your narrative, you shut them down. You can't handle the truth about what you've become." "The truth?" Colbert screamed, spittle flying from his lips. "The truth is you're a washed-up actor desperately trying to stay relevant by spouting conspiracy theories on my show." The personal attack hit differently than the previous exchanges. Harrelson's expression hardened, but he maintained his composure, even as security guards began approaching from the wings. "There it is," Harrelson said calmly, addressing not just Colbert, but the cameras still rolling. "When they can't attack the message, they attack the messenger. This is how the system protects itself, by destroying anyone who dares to question it." Security guards hesitated at the edge of the stage, unsure whether to intervene as cameras continued capturing every moment. The production crew looked paralyzed, caught between following their host's demands and recognizing they were witnessing a historic moment in television. "You want to talk about truth?" Harrelson continued, his voice carrying clearly across the silent studio. "The truth is that millions of Americans are struggling with health issues that could be addressed naturally, but they'll never hear about those solutions because networks like this one depend on pharmaceutical advertising money." Colbert lunged forward as if to physically confront Harrelson, but the actor stepped back smoothly, his hands raised peacefully. "The truth is that comedy shows like this one used to challenge power, but now they serve power. They've become part of the propaganda machine." "That's enough!" Colbert roared, his voice breaking completely. "Security, remove him now!" The guards finally moved forward, but Harrelson waved them off. "I'll leave on my own," he said with dignity and tact. "But before I go, I want everyone watching to ask themselves one question. Why is Stephen so afraid to have this conversation?" He turned toward the audience, many of whom were now standing, phones raised, capturing every word. "Why can't we talk about the connection between media money and the messages we receive? Why does questioning pharmaceutical companies make someone a conspiracy theorist?" Colbert was now visibly shaking, his career-long composure completely shattered. "Because you're spreading dangerous misinformation," he shouted desperately. "Dangerous? To whom?" Harrelson asked pointedly. "To people who might learn they have options beyond expensive prescriptions? Or dangerous to the profit margins of your sponsors?" The question hung in the air as Harrelson walked calmly toward the exit. He paused at the edge of the stage and turned back one final time. "I came here tonight to promote a movie," he said, his voice carrying across the dead-silent studio. "But I'm leaving having exposed something much more important. The corruption of media, the suppression of health information, and the complete moral bankruptcy of supposed truth-tellers who've sold their souls for advertising dollars." With that, Woody Harrelson walked off the stage, leaving Stephen Colbert standing alone, breathing heavily, his show in ruins around him. The audience sat in stunned silence as the cameras continued rolling, capturing the host's complete breakdown. The credits never rolled that night. Instead, the show cut abruptly to commercial, but the damage was done. Within hours, clips of the confrontation were viral across every social media platform. Colbert Exposed trended worldwide as millions shared footage of the unprecedented meltdown. The incident sparked widespread discussion about media integrity, pharmaceutical influence, and the role of entertainment in shaping public opinion. Colbert's ratings plummeted in the following weeks as advertisers distanced themselves and viewers questioned everything they thought they knew about their late-night hosts. The confrontation had laid bare the uncomfortable truth about the relationship between media, money, and power, leaving an industry forever changed by one actor's refusal to stay silent.